but the numbers are pretty big. The Dow is up about 5.5% on the month. S&P 500 up 8% on the month. These are big moves for a month. The NASDAQ up 11.5% in the month of May. Even the Russell 2000, which had been battered pretty badly, was up 7% during the month. Bitcoin rose 11%, almost exactly the amount of the NASDAQ. And, a lot of people have been trying to claim that Bitcoin is decoupled from the NASDAQ. It's not a risk asset anymore. It's trading more like gold. Well, all of those calls are premature. Gold was down about 0.5% on the month. So how can anybody say that Bitcoin is now correlated with gold and not the NASDAQ when it pretty much traded in lockstep with the NASDAQ on the month? Or the gold stocks managed to rise. The GDX was up 4.5% on the month, and the GDXJ, the juniors, was up 7.5%. That's not bad, given flat to lower gold prices. And in fact, in the final week of the year, last several days, we had gold down about $30 one day, $40 another day. And on both of those days, the gold stocks were positive. And so a lot of the gains on the month happened in the final week of the month, despite the fact that gold was down. They're not even priced for 2,000 gold, let alone $3,300 gold. And that's about where gold is now. In fact, it's up about $32 already early on a Sunday evening. We're at $33.22 on gold. And while we did have a big rise in the stock market on the month, we did not have a rise in the bond market at all. Yields on the U.S. Treasury bonds are near their highs, meaning bond yields near their lows. Right now, the yield on the 10-year is 4.42, and the yield on the 30-year is 4.96. So not much off the highs in the yields, not much off the lows in bond prices. And we barely had a rally at all in the dollar. The dollar index right now is about 99.99. We barely got above or below 0.98. So the dollar didn't rebound. Bonds didn't rebound. The only thing that rebounded was the stock market. And I don't think that rebound is justified. I think the tariffs coming off the table, at least the draconian reciprocal tariffs, the 145% tariffs on China, I think there was a huge relief rally in stocks. So I think the market should have gone down more than it did, given how overpriced it already was before the trade war started. And so I think this bounce should not be long-lived. I think we should roll over, especially if we get continued weakness in the bond market and in the foreign currency markets, the dollar. But a couple of things that happened over the weekend that should bode, ill for the stock market. Right now, stock market futures are not down that much on the news. Dow futures off about 0.3%, 128 points. That was a big deal. And also, there was a Supreme Court ruling, not Supreme Court, a court ruling, lower court, trade court, that, kind of threw out some of Trump's tariffs, saying that these are not legal, that the president doesn't have the authority to unilaterally impose these tariffs. And I agree with that court. Although I think the Trump administration has got another ruling that the tariffs can stay until it's resolved by a higher court. And again, it wasn't all of the tariffs that were thrown out. But again, I think the president is abusing his authority. The reciprocal tariffs are not really reciprocal because he's not imposing tariffs that match tariffs that are imposed by our trading partners. There is nothing reciprocal about them. He just called them reciprocal. But it's clear that that's not why the tariffs are there. When Trump campaigned on tariffs, he didn't campaign on tariffs because of fentanyl. And when he had Liberation Day, he didn't say that he was liberating us from fentanyl. The purpose of the tariffs, and even the ones on Mexico and Canada and China, are predominantly to bring American manufacturing home and to raise revenue. Trump talks about that all the time. So you can't say, no, revenue is not the reason. Bringing back our manufacturing is not the reason. It's all about fentanyl. That's just an excuse to try to justify tariffs that he has no authority to impose. I mean, if it really was all about fentanyl, he wouldn't be talking about these other issues. But obviously, and the courts should not turn a blind eye to what is obvious, the purpose of the tariffs, and more specifically, the House of Representatives. all revenue bills, including revenues from tariffs, must originate in the House. And that's because the founding fathers didn't want one man in the White House imposing taxes on the American public. And that's where the tariffs fall. They are on Americans. They are not on the Chinese. They're not on the Mexicans. They're not on the Canadians. That was just a bunch of BS so that people would vote for Trump, believing that Trump was going to fund government from external revenue, not internal revenue, and that we were going to be off the hook, that Americans were going to get tax cuts and we were going to pay for government by taxing China and everybody else. And that was just not true. But that court loss for Trump was taken as a win for the markets, because the stock market obviously does not like the tariffs. And so that anything that diminishes those tariffs, that apparently the Chinese are cheating. They're not living up to their end of the bargain. I'm not even sure what the bargain is, because they really didn't negotiate much. They both reduced the tariffs that they had imposed. Trump imposed them, went up to 145, and then China went up to 125 in retaliation. And then after they met in Geneva, Trump came down to 30, and China came down to 10 or something like that. And that was about it. I'm not really sure what else they agreed on, but apparently the Chinese aren't living up to their end of the bargain. And now it's no more Mr. Nice Guy. So we'll see, because now Trump is basically saying maybe we're going to have more tariffs. And in his post on Truth Social, Trump said the only reason that he lowered tariffs was to help out China. Right? He said the Chinese economy was devastated by the tariffs and that there was going to be civil unrest. And he didn't want that to happen. He felt bad for China because they were, so he decided to be a nice guy and just, go easy on them, right? As if it had nothing to do with the US stock market tanking or all these forecasts for recession, because, there was no ships coming in from China with products that, had nothing to do with our economy. He was solely motivated by the goodness of his heart because he felt bad for the Chinese and wanted to let him off the hook. But now he's saying, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm going to be tough now on China, which of course, it's not tough on China. It's tough on Americans. The Americans pay the tariffs, not the Chinese. The Americans are going to have to do without the products, not the Chinese. There's plenty of products there in China. In fact, if China exports fewer products to America, that means there's more products in China for the Chinese to buy. So it's actually good for China. Whatever they don't sell to us, they get to keep for themselves, right? So that's a good thing. Or maybe they can sell to somebody else that actually has stuff that they need. But this is a negative development that potentially could be weighing on the stock market on Monday. The other potential negative development is the weekend meeting at the White House. Donald Trump summoned Jerome Powell to the White House, basically, trying to get his mind right by taking him back behind the woodshed and basically telling him that he wants lower rates. I mean, that was the whole purpose of the meeting. Trump wanted to talk to Powell because Trump has been beating up Powell in public, calling him, too late Powell, and, making fun of him. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I guess he wanted to state his case. I don't know how much arm twisting there was, but it's no secret that Trump wants rate cuts and Powell is not delivering. Now, as he steps down, immediately his position is filled by the vice chair. Now, I don't know if he's leaving the FOMC completely or just resigning as chair, and he would just be another voting member. My guess would be if he resigns as chair, he's probably going to leave the FOMC entirely. But the vice chair would take his place. Now, if you look at the meetings, there's 12 voting members. So even if Powell left and now they'd have to get another voting member. I'm not sure if a new one has to be appointed or what the procedure is, but even if it went down to 11, it's not like the last meeting was a close call. There was no dissent. All 12 members, I believe, voted to keep interest rates unchanged. So even if the vice chairman were to become chairman, rates would still not move. Now, Trump has to appoint somebody else. And whoever he appoints needs to be, confirmed by the Senate. Now, assuming the Senate just rubber stamps whatever lackey Trump wants to, put in Powell's place, he's still only one vote. Yes, traditionally, the Fed chairman carries a lot of weight. But if the other FOMC members have been honest and they really think that rate cuts would be inappropriate, and especially if they're concerned about Trump bringing in a ringer and how that might impact the credibility of the Fed, they may still vote to leave interest rates unchanged. So it won't. All right. Well, my next stop is going to be in Palm Springs, California, although I am going to go down to the LA area before I head out there. But that's my next conference, the Freedom Fest. I have not been at Freedom Fest in a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. I used to go every year. In fact, I went to the very first one that Mark Skousen had, and I went to a lot of them back then. But I've been missing for a few years, but I'm going to be at this one. We're going to have a booth. I got a couple of reps that are going to be there. My family will be there once again. I mean, many of you had an opportunity to meet my wife at the Bitcoin conference. She was there with my kids, although they weren't really hanging out at the conference. I'll probably be hanging out at the conference more this time. By the way, I mentioned on my last podcast or 2 podcasts ago, my wife has a new video out from her new song, Love on Fire. A number of you have watched it, but she's got a great video that she composed. Remember, she wrote the song, she sings the song, she did the video. You can check it out on her YouTube channel, Laughing Cats. We'll probably drop another link in the description here, and you could watch her new video. But she will be with me at Freedom Fest, so I would encourage people to sign up to join me in Palm Springs. It's California, June 11th through the 14th. So it's coming up, but some people living here could probably get there on a last minute. And then later in the month, I'm doing the Real Estate Guys Summit at Sea, June 20th to the 29th. I mentioned on, I don't know if it was my last podcast or 2 podcasts ago, that I'm going to be flying directly to Miami from San Francisco. And I invited anybody from the Bay Area who is signed up for this conference to fly with us on our plane. And one of my clients from the Bay Area signed up. So he and his wife will be accompanying my family on our flight from San Francisco to Miami on June 19th. There's 2 more I want to talk before I get to the Bitcoin conference. Oh, and you can sign up for Summit at Sea. It's investorsummitatSea.com. You just go and register if you want to attend that event. Again, June 20th to the 29th. The boat leaves from Miami, Florida. So I was watching Meet the Press this morning. I watch a few of these Sunday shows, but I want to talk a little bit about the Meet the Press, because on that one, you had House Speaker Mike Johnson was talking about the big, beautiful bill and just kept lying through his teeth about that bill. I mean, first of all, he also lied about how great the economy was under Trump. He repeated the lie that during Trump's first couple of years in office, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. And he went out of his way to say it wasn't just the greatest economy in the history of America. It was the greatest economy in the history of the world. So there was never a point in time in all of world history where any economy did as well as the U.S. did during Trump's first couple of years, which is so ridiculous to make those grandiose claims. But they keep doing that. But, then he went to talk specifically about the big, beautiful bill. And one of the things he said about the big, beautiful bill was that it did not increase